This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, super practical.
I'm not telling people to have a mistress. I'm teaching you, learn the lesson from the people who have a mistress, because there's many business lessons that apply.
Pious.
There's a part in the book of Revelation where Jesus says, I want you either hot or cold. I'm spewing lukewarm churches out. And I think it's a good way to look at your list.
Romantic to his very core.
Once in a while, I'll give my girl a present, like a Snickers bar or something.
And totes tender.
If someone asks you to walk on eggshells, smash the eggshells and let the chips fall wherever they may.
Adored by feminists everywhere.
It takes a strong woman to admit when she's wrong.
Not a judgmental bone in his entire body.
I look at all the free information people give just on Facebook and I go, what a bunch of time hose.
Has a PhD in armchair philosophy.
In the land of dumbasses, the smartass is king.
You'll never meet a more sensitive guy.
If you really care about people, you shame the hell out of them. This is Ben Settle, the bensettle.com podcast. And Jonathan, I think we can both agree, especially in this day and age, especially for anyone who is what I would say serious about their business or about anything really, not just their business, that cheap and free is the new expensive.
Boom.
Right?
Drop the mic.
Yeah, I think we can just turn this off.
Hell yeah.
I think we're, but it's like I was talking about before. Like because I'm giving this information away free, it will not be valued as much, and it's actually very expensive because it's not being applied. And it's like a false economy. It's like not using it could be very detrimental to somebody's sales. You know, if it's something they could use. Now, people would rightfully say, Ben, you are kind of part of the problem. Then I would say, absolutely. I am part of the problem by giving this podcast away for free. By giving all the information I give away for free, I am part of the problem. Okay, so I'm admitting it. You don't have to troll me about it. I know. But since I already tried the paid route and I didn't like it, even if it was profitable, I just didn't like it. Jonathan didn't like it. You didn't like it, right? Like,
no.
Like you were so happy when we ended that. I think you were happier than I was. I think Cupcake was a little
still happy.
She was a little perplexed though, right? Like she couldn't understand why we would do that. But you know, now that she's part of the Podcast Factory business and is in the thick of it, I suspect she would have a different point of view now if she had been back then. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, if she would have seen all the crap we were going through, hell yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it is. But cheap is and free is the new expensive. And this is like whenever you try to do money-saving things, and there's an email player subscriber I was just talking to about this recently. Every time she does something, tries to save money, like on a VA or something, she finds that the VA always screws something up, or she has to redo it herself anyway because she tried to save money. In fact, she'd been interviewed on a podcast, and she had to she wanted to have it transcribed so she could send it out to her list, which is something I recommend my email player subscribers do sometimes, especially if you do an especially good interview, get that baby transcribed and send out part of it or all of it or do it over several emails to your list selling something, especially if it's a really good, you're like on point. She hired some person to do it from Fiverr or whatever, and the person just was riddled with mistakes and problems, and she had to have it redone by like rev.com, who I recommend using. I love Rev. You ever use rev.com, Jonathan? It's the coolest thing in the world.
I gotta say, bro, they amaze me with what they can do and how quickly.
It really is amazing. And, I used to hire this stuff out to people. I think this is it. Not only do I not have to talk to anybody, which I like the best part. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to email anyone. I just upload it and it's done. But my pal, Troy Browser, who and I don't know if you know him or not, but he's an Infusionsoft guy. He's very big in the Infusionsoft world. And he's gotten some pretty big endorsements and that sort of thing in the Infusionsoft world. And he was telling me, because he's a content machine. This guy's always creating content. And what he does, and this is an interesting trick for tip, not trick. It's not a trick at all. It's a tip. He has he downloaded the rev.com app for his phone, which is free. Like anybody, I don't care if you have an Apple, if you have an iPhone or Android, it doesn't matter. You can get it. I have it on mine too. And it hooks up to your account, which you already have your credit card on file and all that stuff there. And whenever he wants to write an email, because he likes he's a talker. Like he is definitely more of a talker than a writer. Like he loves talking and he's good at talking. He's very good. He's a very good salesman and everything. But he just is always talking out content and stuff. So he just records it on, with another app. He records it on his phone when he's driving or walking around or whatever. And then he uploads it with the app to rev.com. And then, 10 minutes later, basically, because it's short content. He has everything transcribed for him, and he just smooths that out into an email or a book or whatever he's creating. It's the easiest way in the world to create content. It really is. If you're willing to pay rev.com and not be a cheap ass about it, right? Because it's not free. But how many people, I could save money if I just do it myself? Yeah, if you want to spend all that time. When I was broke, I used to do that. Oh, Jonathan, when I was broke, I used to have to do that. And you got to do what you got to do when you're broke. I mean, you can't, I'm not suggesting you got to spend money you don't have. I'm just saying this is after you've gotten to a point where you are making some cash flow. You're much better off offloading some of this, money savings, quote unquote stuff. And for example, another example, Jonathan, another example. So as you know, as everyone in my audience who listens on any kind of regular basis knows, I hire Keith Commons, Irish guy out of Ireland, obviously. I hire him to do all my web stuff, my programming, web design, all that. He is my web guy. He's the web guy. I have any kind of problem with anything, I just send it to him. And he'll even help me with personal computing stuff. I'll give him access to my computer. Like you can do that remotely and he'll fix stuff for me like that I can't figure out. So he's just a great resource. And I pay him quite a bit of money for this. And when I need something done, I'll pay him extra money on top of the monthly thing because it goes over the allotted hours that he does for me. And I can't be happier. I could not be happier paying him all this money, even though he's way more expensive than pretty much, anyone I've dealt with. But it's money well spent because he does it right. I don't have to him and we just work really well together. It's worth it for me. If I wanted to save money and go with some substandard programmer or something from some whatever service, Elance or whatever the hell, I don't even know all of them anymore, Fiverr or whatever, it's hit or miss. You may get someone or may not. I have a guy that I can work with who I know exactly what I'm going to get. It's worth paying. And I know that not everybody can hire him. I get it because he's very pricey. But it saves me time. It saves me a lot of money in the long run. I'm not frustrated. I have more mental bandwidth. I don't have to think about stuff when it comes to programming and my websites and all that. He hooked me up with a web host that's in Ireland called Black Knight, which I highly recommend. They're not cheap either, Jonathan. They're very expensive compared to HostGator or whatever. But it's just been problem free. And he works with them. See, if I have a problem with my website, like for example, I wasn't able to access my own website from my own house because for some reason my SP was blacklisted because of someone else. And so I couldn't, isn't that weird? Now, if I went down to the coffee shop or something, I could access my website. Or if I use my data plan on my phone, I could just not my modem at home. He got on the phone with Black Knight. He got it fixed. And then when it happened again, for some reason, he did it for me. I didn't have to spend all day on the phone. That's my whole point. He did it for it's worth it. Jonathan, I pay you to do all the producing and audio stuff for this. It is worth every penny for me. It is. And now you're going to raise my fees, but whatever. But I'd rather pay you to do it than me to try to do it on my own. And everybody wants to save money and they have these crappy sounding podcasts and all that. I don't want that. I want to have some semblance of professionalism in my business, at least on this side.
The anti-professional.
Absolutely. But part of that is actually paying, not trying to save money, but actually going out of my way to pay more for the best. Another example, for my novels, my Enoch War novels, but now also other products that I did, like my Villains book and my Crackerjack Selling Secrets book, he's helping with this, is I hire Kirk Dalpons, who is a cover art. He does cover. That's what he does. It's his business. He's hired. He works for all the big publishers. Any big publisher you've heard of, he does work for them. He's very expensive. Okay. I mean, at least I think he is compared to all these other graphic artists and stuff who can do it. But I wouldn't even think of hiring anyone but him at this point. He does such a good job. And the covers of those books are the headlines, basically, for those books. The sales letter for those books is a cool-looking cover. In fact, we're going to have T-shirts made of the Enoch Wars books covers. We're having T-shirts made of those for anyone who's interested. I don't know how many people would be interested in something like that. We're doing it through Amazon, so it's not like a big deal. I don't have to a lot of inventory or anything. But that's how highly I think of his artwork. And I'll tell you what, my Villains book would not have sold as well if it weren't for the cover. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And he's working on my Crackerjack Selling Secrets book. And I don't know what he's going to come up with, but I know it'll be something cool. And I know it'll help me sell more books because I'm not cheaping out trying to get a, quote, good deal. I don't care about getting good. I care about getting a good quality job done. It's more expensive to have the job done wrong and save money. And, copywriting clients, the best clients know this too. They're not, they might balk. Of course they wince when you tell them your price. But they know that they're going to make so much more money by having a good sales letter, at least the smart ones, than they will by saving money. When my Enoch Wars books when I get them, I'm almost done with them. I'm editing book 6 as the time of this. I don't know when this is going out, probably in October or something, right, Jonathan? This episode, probably like in October-ish,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. I think it might be even in November.
Okay, so November, even better. By the time this comes out, I will almost be done with book 7 and have it, be ready to be published, hopefully by the new year. And when I have that done, when they're all done, I'm going to put them into an ultimate edition, which is going to be all 7 books in one book, under the one cover. And I'll be hiring Kirk to do a special cover for that, like a wraparound cover. And that's not going to be cheap. Okay. Not going to be cheap at all. I'm also going to hire him probably to do like 10 illustrations that can be put in throughout the Ultimate Edition through the book. Again, it's not going to be cheap. It won't pay for itself right away, but it will over time, because that kind of stuff is what's going to get it noticed, from what I understand, by, for example, people who might want to turn these books into movies and that sort of thing. Then if I just save money by having some crappy artist throw something up, I'm going to have them eventually turn into graphic novels, which means I'm going to hire a actual comic book artist. Now, I say this because I already know someone's going to email me and say, well, my brother can draw real good. Look, I'm not hiring your brother. Okay. I'm not hiring your friend. I'm going to actually go. I know who my favorite comic book artists are, who actually do comic book work. And I'm going to contact them using Federal Express. I'm going to contact them and sell them on wanting to do the graphic novels for me. And it's going to cost a lot of money. I know this going in. I already know this. And I know some of them probably have contracts and they may not be able to work for other stuff, but whatever. I'll find someone. I have a list. So anyone listening to this, I'm not going to hire your friend or your brother, your cousin, or whoever.
Send
I don't
your
care.
submissions to Ben Settle.
And I don't care how good they are, but they're better. Really, I don't care. I know who I want to hire. I already know you're telling me what I'm not buying. If you write me, giving me some advice on this, I know what I'm doing with this. And I'm going to do that. And it's going to be expensive, but that's fine. I'm also going to hire a very good comic book writer, a real comic book writer, not someone who aspires to be a comic book writer or aspires to be a screenwriter. Right? So again, don't write in about how your sister-in-law and all that I don't care. I already have writers in mind who actually write comic books and who can adapt novels into comic books in mind, who I'm going to do the same thing with. Federal Express letters, selling them on doing this. I'll pay them well, because I don't want to cheap out on this, because it's the graphic novels often are what get the attention of Hollywood. And I know this because I have enough contacts in Hollywood from when I worked out there briefly. I interned out there basically a long time ago, but I know people who still work in the industry, and this is what they all tell me. And so it is. I know someone who's an email player subscriber who actually works in the industry, and he's the one telling me this stuff too. And it's just observation. I mean, there's just a lot of graphic novels because producers they can see it already laid out. Like they understand, they can visualize what the movie would look like. So I'm going to do this. And even if they don't ever get made into movies, I don't care. I still will do this because it'll still pay for itself over time. I'm not going to cheap out, in other words, like most people would do. Like they'd hire their brother-in-law's best friends, cousins, or whatever, who like once drew Spider-Man or something, and now they're a comic book art. That's not what I'm doing. Because cheap and free is the new expensive. I actually think it pays for itself and will make me money over time to not cheap out. And, there's also a time and like mind bandwidth thing here, Jonathan. Like, who do you really want to, really, do I want to sit there and spend my time and my mental bandwidth adapting my books into scripts and all that when I have no experience with that, or comic book scripts especially? Do I really want to do that? Do I want to sit there and do I want to, do my own podcast instead of having you do it when I don't want to have to spend the time and mental bandwidth on it, when I can just hand it over to you automatically? I mean, there's a time that, how much is your time worth? I know, again, I know there are people just starting out. They're broke. I was there. I understand you have to do what you have to do. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people who are just being cheap for the sake of being cheap. And it's a dumb way to live. You're wasting your life away. And I know it sounds cool. Oh, look all the money I saved. It didn't. To people who you want to deal with in life and business, they look down on that. They absolutely do. So the too long didn't read version of this whole show, Jonathan, is be a price shopper. But don't be the cheap price shopper who only buys on cheap price. Be the price shopper who buys on quality and knows and almost expects and almost insists on a higher price product. My favorite example would be Gary Bencivenga's $5,000 course, right? And I don't know how many they have left. I know they only printed 2,000 of them up, so people might want to keep that in mind. It's a finite resource, but had he sold that as a $19 ebook, it would never have helped as many people. And it certainly wouldn't have been as worth it probably for him financially. But because he made it expensive, people like me were looking for something like that to invest in. The price actually was a reason to buy, not a reason not to buy, the high price. So that is something else to think about. So anyway, that's it for this week. Next week, Jonathan, which is the 50th episode, milestone episode of the new bensettle.com podcast, I'm going to reach into the mail sack, into my sack, and I'm going to pull out some questions and do a Q&A episode. And I think it'll be hopefully eye-opening for people. If not, at least you and I will have a good time, and so it is. And that will be next week.
Looking forward to it. Another bensettle.com podcast is in the can. See you next week.
You've been listening to the bensettle.com podcast. To download yourself a free issue of Ben's prestigious $97 per month email player's newsletter, which is going to show you 24 ways to write emails people eagerly read, click, and buy from, head on over to www.bensettle.com. Well, off you go. You know it makes sense.
This is the podcastfactory.com.